Welcome to A Seat at the Table with Bishop John Dolan of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Phoenix. It's almost Christmas, and in just a few days, we'll be celebrating the birth of our Savior, Jesus Christ. We have a very exciting show for you today. I think you're really going to enjoy our guest. We have John Surmay of the Byzantine Catholic Church here in Phoenix, St. Stephen's Byzantine Catholic Cathedral. Many Catholics, and of course, we have Bishop John Dolan, and we have many Catholics in the world. But most of them are unaware that the Catholic Church is a communion of churches. So we have the Latin Rite Church, but then we have 23 Eastern Rite Catholic churches, and the Byzantine Church is one of those. So about 98% of Catholics are Latin Rite Catholics. So those other 2%, about 18 million people, are Eastern Rite Catholics. And Pope St. John Paul II had a very high regard for the Eastern Church. He used to say that the church needs to breathe with both lungs, east and west. So since we're just days away from Christmas, we thought it would be great to sit down with one of our Eastern Catholic brothers here to talk about some Christmas traditions in the Byzantine Church and also the days leading up to Christmas, what that's like. So I'm going to welcome John Surmay. And John, before we get started, tell us a little bit about how it is that you're a Byzantine Catholic and just your role at St. Stephen's.
Absolutely. And thank you for inviting me to this discussion. Look forward to it very much. Bishop and Joyce, thank you very much. I am a father. We'll start off with I'm a husband for 31 years to my wife, Carrie. I am a father of two daughters, Abigail and Lily. Father-in-law to my son-in-law, CJ. And for the last 3 weeks, a grandfather to Avery Lynn, who was just born on the 19th of November, which is fantastic.
Yes.
And besides all that, I'm a member of St. Stephen's Cathedral in Phoenix, and I chair their finance advisory council. And I came to the Byzantine faith by birth. It's actually kind of interesting is my grandparents in Pennsylvania were actually married in a Byzantine Catholic church before we even had an American Byzantine Catholic bishop. They go back, and I'm assuming that my ancestors in the area of Central Europe were Byzantine Catholics for since we reunited with the Catholic Church, and so. My background has always been this example of people who love God, who love the church, and put that first, and that's who I am.
And it's a beautiful tradition. It really is.
Yeah, I'm curious. Where is St. Stephen's? It's in Scottsdale, you say?
No, St. Stephen's is actually in Phoenix.
Oh, it's
on 16th, off of Northern, just off of 51.
Yeah, and so and then you said it was a pro-cathedral. So explain that for.
I don't know if I could.
Okay.
I that's the title it's used, but
I see.
I don't know if I understand the reason why. There's a lot of Greek and sometimes Slavonic that enters into things with deeper meanings that.
Well, I was wondering if it had something to do with the fact that you are. That the cathedral was actually in California before the earthquake, and I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. But I'm not sure.
Yeah,
that happened back in 1993, a big earthquake in Van Nuys, and so the church was transferred here. But I remember attending a wedding at St. Stephen's. This would have been in the late 80s, and it was all in another language, and the whole thing was chanted. And my husband and I looked at each other, and I said, I think that was just the gospel. Like, this is going to keep going. And it was incredible. And actually, that is your own deacon, James Danovich. His wife, Josefina, was a friend of ours from the ASU Newman Center. And so I've had a number of interactions with your church. As a young girl, I had a classmate whose father was Byzantine, and he came and visited our classroom. And so starting right then, really made an impact on me. But I want to talk about some of these Byzantine traditions around Christmas. My understanding is that the days leading up to Christmas are they're not called Advent in the Byzantine Church. So talk to us a little bit about that, because that's different.
Yes, I'll absolutely talk about it. And you probably heard what was Old Slavonic. And depending on the audience, it'll be Old Slavonic or English. Most of, for instance, St. Stephen's services are in English, so you don't have to worry about learning Slavonic. And Old Slavonic is like the root Latin. It would be equivalent. And actually, more people in Europe speak a Slavic language than they do speak a Latin language, which is a little known fact just by the demographics. But let's talk a little bit about St. Stephen's and what Christmas is like.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah, we could talk through that. So, I think I think our preparation, we don't call it Advent, we call it the Philip's Fast. It starts on the 15th, which is the day after the feast of Most Holy Apostle Philip. And you notice we don't say Holy Day, we say a feast. It's a feast. We're going to eat. We're going to celebrate. It's a little bit different. And we don't really think about a fast as a penitential period. We think of it as a preparation period. You know, when my daughter got married, we prepared a year in advance for the wedding that took place.
Right.
And I even went to the gym and was working out to make sure I could fit into suits and things like that. We prepared with a positive mindset. And that's what we do 40 days before Christmas. And we don't call it Christmas because Christmas is kind of an English word.
Right.
We call it the Nativity of Christ, or even more powerful, the Incarnation of Christ.
Yeah.
Right. So we use words that teach at the same time that explain what's happening, and that there's always a symbolism and a teaching that go hand in hand with our services. And so this is a 40-day period, and it's to prepare us. And throughout this preparation, we have feast days of very important saints, along in that process. So, for instance, the maternity of Anna, we call it the maternity of Anna, and we have our beloved Saint Nicholas. It was December 6th. It was and very special protector for our Byzantine Catholic Church. And, holy apostles Matthew and Andrew were in there. And of course, the Lady of Guadalupe, all preparing us and focusing us. And we have Thanksgiving services on Wednesday evenings that all are just trying to point us and orient us to that nativity scene that's to come. So we don't like to look at it as penitential or something that weighs us down. It's actually something that lifts us up and gets us into a new mindset. That's what it means in the Byzantine world.
I'm not at all surprised because I had a dear friend, Sister Jean Marie Sahota of blessed memory. Yes. She was a beautiful Byzantine nun. She was maybe 5 feet tall, not quite.
Next to her, yeah.
Loved her. But whenever she would call me or I would see her, she would say, "Glory to Jesus Christ." Yes. Never like, "Hi, Joyce, glory to Jesus Christ." And then I was supposed to say, "Glory forever."
Yes.
And it changes during Easter, but she taught me a lot about just the joy. And when you go to these Byzantine churches, and anyone is welcome, any Catholic, these are masses that we can attend on a Sunday for your Sunday obligation. Feel free to attend. St. Stephen's. Also, you've got St. Thomas Byzantine Catholic Church in Gilbert. Beautiful church. What amazes me about these churches is they're covered in icons. Every possible space. Just beautiful. Bishop, have you been to a Byzantine church before?
In San Diego, at Holy Angels Byzantine Church, and my first introduction to the Eastern Rite was actually in the Byzantine Church when I was a seminarian. We went through it, and we went through the process of the Divine Liturgy and all of that, and it was very fascinating. Just the concept, and you talk about the icons. I remember being just in such awe. I love art and what it communicates, and icons communicate on a whole different level. I discovered when I was in the seminary. So there's such a richness to the Byzantine and other Eastern rites that we can lose sight of in the Western Rite. Yeah.
They're very precious. The precious traditions that can enrich all of us, when they're shared. So one of the things that Byzantine Catholics do, we like to enjoy a special meal on Christmas Eve, my family, I'm sure your family, but Byzantine Catholics have a special meal called the Holy Supper. There's some special dishes involved. So talk to us about that. Does your family do that, or did you grow up doing it?
Yes, absolutely.
What's it like?
Absolutely, and it is special, and it is called Christmas Eve Holy Supper. It has some blend of Slavonic traditions, as well as, it models the Holy Supper is the mindset to it. So preparation, we have a big table, we have a white tablecloth. It's white to symbolize the swaddling cloths. We have one candle, light of Christ, the light of the world. We have hay on the top of the table, on the bottom of the table to symbolize the manger. We start when the first star is seen in the sky. Our greetings change from glory to Jesus Christ. It changed to Christ is born and glorify him, right? And these aren't
beautiful.
These are exclamations. When the star is seen, the beginning is Christ is born and glorify him comes out with the chant that we want.
Gorgeous.
And we have either 7, 9, or 12 meatless meals because we're still in the fast. The fast doesn't end till Christmas Day. So these are meatless meals, and they will be things like sauerkraut soup, kapusta soup is in our language, and meatless pierogi, which is a dumpling-like meal, and halumki, which is a stuffed cabbage without meat, and things like that. And they're kind of small meals that come out, but the family is enjoying them. The main meal is fish, most likely for most families. And there's this symbolism that comes in. There's Christmas carols that are sung at the end, and there's a expectation that you're going to church afterwards that would occur as well for our Christmas Eve celebrations. So this is all part, and it's not a requirement of the Byzantine Church to do this. It is a spilling over, if you will, of how, for instance, I'm the head of the household. The expectation is the head of the household is bringing the church to the household. And this is our way of, I think of it very similar to how you see a Jewish family having Passover, where things are explained. And so as a child, and I would see my cousins and things the same way, you're exposed and explained in ordinary terms by the things that you're doing. And it sits deeper than anything you could read in a book when you experience it.
Because you're watching it unfold and you're seeing your father or uncles or so forth.
Yes.
That sounds beautiful. Bishop, for you, does your family do you have memories of Christmas Eve, things that your parents did or special dishes? What was that like?
Well, the Christmas Eve was when we opened up our gifts, and my folks had this wonderful way of getting us all in a car, a big old station wagon with just a bunch of us, and Dad would go. He would drive us to see all of the Christmas lights on that Christmas Eve, and then he would say, "You know what? I think somebody might be at our house. I have this inkling," and then that meant we got to turn this car around because we know that Santa came, and it was in his mind that they needed to get all of the presents opened before Mass because we would be anxious if we were at Mass for the presents, afterwards. So that was their idea. So we had very simple. It was a simple meal. It was just ham and buns and things like that. But and then the cookies and all that comes out. But it was great. It was a wonderful time. Yeah, it was always somehow a miracle when we discovered that the presents were there when we returned. We don't know how that happened. It was a miracle.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah. And so, how about in the Byzantine Christmas traditions? Did you open gifts on Christmas Eve, or is it the next day, or what are some of your favorite memories?
Yeah, so my fondest memories are at my grandmother's house, and just to paint a little bit of a picture. It's in my hometown, Elizabeth, New Jersey. She lived in a densely packed part of town. So the cars didn't just double park. Out of necessity, sometimes they were triple parked. And you just kind of dealt with it, right? You just beeped your horn if you needed to pull out. And we were around her humble kitchen table, which had bench seating for half of the seating. And the kids would pile in. It was so packed that we only were allowed to use one hand. The other hand was underneath the table, and you kind of had to ask your neighbor to help you as you ate your food because you only had ability to one hand. So that's the setting, which was just fantastic to be with cousins and aunts and uncles and and everything together. A great memory. But the one I like is my grandmother, being the oldest in the household, would take. You got to hear me out all the way through this, right? So with honey, she would bless each person individually and say something special for that person, and she'd bless them on the head, much like our priests use oil,
Right.
at services. And then we would together dip a sliver of garlic and honey into and eat it together, and we would all have this bitter and sweet
Wow.
memory. And she would go to each one of us individually. It was special for each one. And then, at the end, we would have something that I think my grandfather invented. It was a nut toss. So basically, put nuts and candy and coins in a bag. Everyone would go onto the kitchen floor, hands and knees. They'd throw the confabulation up in the air. Everyone would scramble to pick up. It was quite a competition to who could get the most money and the most candy. But it was a great time as the family is scrambling along on the floor. And then again, it wasn't just us. You'd go to church, and the whole church would kind of have this smell of garlic in the air as everyone was doing that Christmas Eve.
Wow.
Yeah, but it is great.
That's great. I love that concept of the bittersweet. Well, isn't it great how grandmothers pass on those traditions? They won't allow those traditions to pass.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're just really that's ingrained in who they are.
Well, and I remember Sister Jean Marie talking about her grandmother and how, growing up in Eastern Europe, there was so much repression, right, and persecution, but they found a way to Catholicize everything. So before you put the bread in the oven, you make a big sign of the cross in the dough. And then before you plant your garden, you take your hoe and you make a large sign of the cross. Like they somehow put Christ into everything. And she was so cute because I remember her saying that their entire neighborhood would gather on Fridays to pray the rosary. And she said, I was mostly in it for the cookies, but she became a religious sister, so something had to stick. But Bishop John, as we're kind of closing down, what can you say to encourage? I mean, we want to see this patrimony passed on, not just preserved, but promoted and passed on. How would you encourage Catholics to embrace this fuller tradition of the Catholic Church, East and West?
Well, I think as John had shared, it's something. Or this was prior to our meeting, but that we just need to continue to share and educate and form people in this beautiful gift that we have as a church on that wider level, knowing that Christ, of course, is the center of all that we are, but. When we think about, you said that 98% of the church is Latin Rite, and 2% is Eastern Rite. I think the more we are able to inform people that the Eastern Rite tradition is rich, it's powerful, and though it's 2%, it is the strong lung, one of the powerful lungs within the church, and we need to celebrate that and bring that out into the open. I think, John, you said earlier before we met that even a number of our priests are just not aware of that, and I think I need to bake that. We're building our own seminary here, and we need to bake that into our seminary formation process for our seminaries to be going and making the visits to the Byzantine Church, to the Maronite Church, and so on. But
right.
Just to get that experience.
Because we have a Melkite church here, St. John of the Desert, the Maronite Church, St. Joseph's. We have 3 Chaldean churches,
right.
And of course 2 Byzantine churches. So there's just a rich, and Ukrainian as well, just a beautiful tradition here. Wow, I almost forgot the Syro-Malabar.
Right.
So many beautiful traditions. Any closing thoughts, John, as we finish up here today on just the beauty of your tradition in the Byzantine Church?
Yeah, I would just say, with God's grace, we'll continue. We'll be in the here and now. There's been a lot of evil that's tried to stomp us out. There's a lot of martyr blood that has fought back, and by the grace of God, we'll continue, and we'll continue to be one in Christ with both lungs, Bishop.
Indeed.
And celebrate that beautiful feast of the Nativity, Christmas, the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ. We're just so grateful that you could be here join us today. Thank you for being here, John Surmay of the Byzantine Catholic Church, and of course, Bishop John Dolan. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.